Welcome kapatid to our series on how to answer law school and bar problems. Today we are taking a look at a problem from the 2022 bar exam. I'll be showing you precisely how to answer a problem, how to be responsive to a problem, and how you can also arrive at an elegant and precise answer all on your own. All of this and more coming right up. Hi, my name is Lex and welcome to Lex in Motion. In this channel, I'll be helping you build your competence, confidence, and capability in law school. Start today by hitting the subscribe button below. New episodes are posted every Friday. Without further ado, let us now begin with a problem from the 2022 bar examination. I'll be showing it on your screen right now. The first step in answering every problem is to take a deep breath. Find a way to calm yourself down. Don't look at the problem, don't look at your screen. Ipikit mo ang iyong mga mata kapatid at huminga ka lang muna ng malalim. The second step is to take another deep breath. As you exhale, know and understand that however way you're going to answer this next problem really is not going to matter. Tuldok lang ito kapatid. It is a dot, a speck, minutiae in the great grand story of your law school journey. And as you exhale, envision yourself passing your exam, passing the bar exam, taking the oath and what you'll be wearing on your roll signing. Now, you are ready to look at the problem. The third step is to read the last sentence, then the second to the last sentence, and then the two sentences together. If what you see at the end of the problem are phrases like explain briefly or discuss fully, feel free to include these with the last sentence. We do this, kapatid, in order for us to zero in on the problem. We can only be responsive if we know exactly what is being asked. We skip ahead to the last sentence because this is where the question is usually found. Remember, we can only be responsive if we know exactly what is being asked. Let's look at the last sentence of the problem. Do you agree with the charge of homicide against Buboy? Explain briefly. Here the examiner is asking us whether or not the charge of homicide is correct. This should automatically trigger in your head your understanding of homicide. This charge of homicide is being leveled against Buboy. Sino kaya siya? At bakit siya inaakusahan ng homicide? Let's read the second to the last sentence of the problem for more clues. After inquest, the prosecutor charged Buboy with 3 counts of homicide. Here the examiner is telling us that Buboy was arrested without a warrant and after an informal and summary investigation on whether or not he actually committed homicide, the prosecutor has determined that it is proper that Buboy be charged with this crime. The fourth step is for us to identify what is being asked in this problem. This is your guiding star. Ito at ito lang talaga ang maaari nating balikan kung sakaling tayo ay nalunod na sa mga facts at arguments na present ng examiner. When in doubt, always go back to what is being asked in the problem. Here, what is being asked is whether we agree or we disagree with the charge of homicide against Buboy. Then we are being asked to explain briefly. The next step is for us to identify the rule, concept, provision, or doctrine that is being asked in the problem. The master key to being hyper-responsive is by identifying the exact rule, provision, concept, or doctrine upon which the examiner has built the problem. If we can reverse engineer how the problem was drafted in the first place, then it gives us the fighting chance to give the precise answer that the examiner is looking for. Dito sa problem na ito kapatid, ano kaya ang sinusubukan sa atin ng ating examiner? What is the rule, concept, provision, or doctrine that is being tested in this problem? If what is being tested is still unclear to you based only on the last 2 sentences, then feel free to come back to this after the next step. What is being tested here is our understanding of homicide. We know that Article 249 of the Revised Penal Code provides that homicide is committed by any person who shall kill another person without the attendant circumstances outlined under murder, parricide, and infanticide. The next step now, kapatid, is for us to read the problem from start to finish. We will look for bits and pieces, anything really, that will help us answer the question. We will go over the problem line by line and look for clues that might help us give to the examiner the answer he or she wants. If you see an actor, mark it. If you see the actor's action, mark it. If you think something might be relevant, then mark it. All others we can safely ignore as noise. I hope I'm still making sense so far. Let's begin reading the problem from start to finish. Mo, Curly, and Larry were drinking and singing inside a karaoke bar when suddenly Buboy entered the bar and without warning, immediately shot all three of them using a caliber .45 pistol. Thereafter, Buboy ran out of the bar to escape. Mo, Curly, and Larry died instantly due to gunshot wounds in their heads and bodies. With the help of eyewitnesses, Buboy was arrested. After inquest, the prosecutor charged Buboy with 3 counts of homicide. Mo, Curly, and Larry are the 3 stooges. Mahalaga sila dito sa akin dahil sila ang mga naging biktima ng ating akusado na si Buboy. They are actors and their action is the drinking and the singing. In the next line, the examiner tells us that Buboy entered the bar biglaan, walang warning, at pinagbabaril na daw niya ang tatlo. Tumakas ngayon si Buboy. Relevant sa akin ang mga salita gaya ng suddenly, without warning, at immediately shot. These are relevant because they speak of the nature of the attack. It is possible that the attack was attended by treachery. In the next sentence, the examiner tells us that Buboy escaped. Tumakas na daw siya. Patay ang tatlo. This is relevant to me because there can be no crime of homicide or murder when there are no dead bodies. Finally, the examiner tells us that Buboy was arrested. The public prosecutor charged Buboy with homicide. After marking our paragraph, it should look like this. Let's now continue reading the rest of the problem. Do you agree with the charge of homicide against Buboy? Explain briefly. Here, the examiner is now posing the question whether we agree or we disagree with the charge of 3 counts of homicide against Buboy. Knowing what you now know about the problem, please pause this video and type up your answers in the comment section. This is the only way for me to gauge your answers and I will try to respond as best as I can. Libre dito ang magkamali, kapatid. Hindi mo ito ikakabagsak dahil hindi mo ako professor at hindi rin kita estudyante. Huwag kang matatakot na magkakamali dito, kapatid, kung ikakatama mo naman sa iyong quiz at midterms o maging iyong bar exam. This problem is a good illustration of the technique I call leading. Leading is the process of dropping as many bits and pieces of information for a student to reach a particular conclusion or maintain a particular position or to support a given argument. Leading is all about baiting the student to give the incorrect answer. It works best against students who are prepared, who are ready, but not at 100%. Okay lang yan, kapatid, kung hindi ka tinatablan ng leading, lalo na kung wala ka pa sa kalahati ng iyong naaaral para sa inyong quiz o exam. Leading puts the student into a position where he or she seems to have no other choice but to agree with the position, the argument, or the conclusion that the examiner has laid down before you. On the flip side, our instincts tell us that this position is wrong, much like the story of Hansel and Gretel, when they were led to the hut or the house of the evil witch who eats little children. Leading also preys on our natural tendency to overthink our own answers. When you face questions where the examiner uses the technique of leading, my advice is for you to follow your gut instinct. If the answer is too easy, it's probably incorrect. The answer might be found in some obscure case or some exception that may not have been necessarily covered in your classes. In this problem, the examiner is leading us to answer that homicide is incorrect. Article 248 of the Revised Penal Code provides that murder is committed by any person who shall kill another, and the element of relationship under parricide is not present. Dito sa problem na ito, wala namang binabanggit na magtatay itong si Buboy at ang ating mga naging biktima. Kiss na natin ang parricide at focus tayo ngayon kung ito ba ay murder. Murder is committed by any person who shall kill another when it is attended by different circumstances. Una sa listahan ang treachery. For treachery to be appreciated, the prosecution has to prove two things. First, the victim, or in this problem, victims must have been killed in a vulnerable or defenseless position. Pasok naman ito kapatid, the attack here was sudden, swift, and immediate. Nagiinuman lang naman. Si Mo, Larry at Curly nang sila ay barilin. Kumakanta kaya sila ng My Way? Hindi yan nabanggit sa problem. The second element, and this for me is the more important element, is that the accused must have deliberately and consciously adopted the means of attack to ensure the killing at no risk to his or herself. In this problem, the second element is not present. Wala namang binabanggit dito na sinadya ni Buboy na barilin at patayin yung tatlo sa pagkakataong sila ay umiinom at nagkakantahan. Kung wala ito kapatid, then there is no treachery. When you go over the cases on crimes against persons, you look at the pattern of the cases. It is never enough that the victim was in a particularly defenseless or vulnerable position. Laging nakasunod ang second element, the element of consciousness and deliberateness of the mode of attack. For what purpose? To ensure the killing at no risk of harm or defense against the accused. Look at all the other qualifying circumstances under Article 248. Dali kapatid, pwede namang mag-pause at magbukas muna ng caudal. Look at poison. Sa panlalason, walang laban ng biktima at pipiliin mo ang lason kung pakiramdam mo hindi ka mahuhuli. Sinasadya ang panlalason. The element of consciousness and deliberateness is also present when the killing is attended by evident premeditation. This is also why the penalty is much higher for murder kung ikukumpara sa homicide. The greater penalty seeks to punish the more criminal mind. I hope I am making sense so far. So, we begin our suggested answer with, yes, I agree with the charge of homicide because the killings were not attended by treachery. As I've mentioned in our digital workbook 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers, every answer you write must be treated as if it were a miniature pleading. Always begin by stating your short answer to the problem and then your position. Make it easy for the examiner to grade your work. Next, we need to write our legal basis. The law does not require that you cite the entire provision of the law. All that matters is you write the most relevant portions of the law. Our criminal laws provide that there is treachery when the victim is in no position to defend his or herself. There must also be proof that the accused consciously and deliberately adopted the mode of attack to facilitate the killing without risk to himself. Notice kapatid that I have used the precise language of the law. The law demands precision in everything we do. However, I have taken the liberty of not writing the entirety of the provision. Doon lang tayo sa relevant, mahalaga at magagamit natin sa susunod na paragraph. Our next line is our most important paragraph, our arguments. This is where you have to argue. Ilaban mo yan kapatid. You cannot parrot back to the examiner the facts that he or she has written down. Wala siyang paki dito kapatid dahil siya ang nagsulat ng problem. Malamang sa malamang ay alam din naman niya ang kwento nito. In this next line, we have to tell the examiner why we have taken this position and why we have chosen this legal basis. We have to give back to the examiner what he or she needs. It's our chance to say, I see what you did there. We do this by arguing why we are correct. In effect, we need to sell to the examiner why we are correct. You can land at the correct answer, kapatid, pero kung hindi mo naman ito maibebenta, kung hindi mo naman makukumbinsi ang examiner na tama ka, ay wala ka na rin pinagkaiba sa ilang libong sagot na dadaan lang sa kanyang mga mata. We stand out by first being hyper-responsive to the problem, and second, through our eloquence. This begins by laying down the strongest argument. What is our strongest argument here? In this problem, the charge of homicide is correct because it is not enough that Mo, Curly, and Larry were shot in a defenseless position. There must also be showing that Buboy specifically adopted his methods to ensure that all three of his victims would die with no risk to himself. Notice, kapatid, that we began our suggested answer with in this problem. Masakit sa mata ang mabasa ang in the case at bar dahil wala naman tayo sa korte at ito ay isang academic exercise. Hindi mo yun ikinakatalino, kapatid. Pwedeng-pwede na rin kami sa here, dahil madali lang itong dot-dotin sa iyong keyboard. I hope I'm still making sense so far. Pansinin mo rin, kapatid, na ang ating sagot ay hindi pag-uulit lamang ng mga facts. Marami kasing estudyante ang sasagot ng here, Police Officer John shot at Randy. Kapag ganun, inuulit mo lang ang problem. Walang pakialam ang examiner o professor mo sa kwento dahil siya mismo naman ang umimbento nito. Of course, he or she knows exactly what happened in the problem. If you do this, you are tendering a factual or facts-based answer. Next, you need to phrase your answer in the form of an argument. You are in law school because you are hoping that someday, one day, you will be a lawyer. At a certain point in your life, kapatid, you will be arguing for a living. Hindi ko naman sinasabi na maging palaaway ka, kapatid. Arguing means convincing your professor, your examiner, or the courts on the merits of your position. Arguing means selling your position and convincing your professor of the correctness of your answer. In your third paragraph, you need to argue. Hindi ka pwedeng umulit lang ng facts. Wala ka nang magiging kaibahan sa ilang libong booklet o answer sheet na dadaan lang sa mata ng mga examiner. Dapat kapag binasa ng professor mo ang sagot mo, masasabi niya na magiging abogada ang batang are. Finally, we have the conclusion. This is the part where most law students are awfully confused. Maraming mga hindi na lang nagsusulat ng kanilang mga conclusion dahil ayaw lang nilang ulitin ang sinabi nila sa bungad ng kanilang mga sagot. A good conclusion should wrap up your entire position, legal basis, and your arguments. It should function like a mic drop. Tipong pag nag-conclude ka na, kapatid, ay tapos na ang usapan. Uwian na dahil may nanalo na. If you are unsure of what to do, focus on the effects of your answer. With our conclusion, the suggested answer should look like this. Yes, I agree with the charge of homicide because the killings were not attended by treachery. Our criminal laws provide that there is treachery when the victim is in no position to defend his or herself. There must also be proof that the accused consciously and deliberately adopted the mode of attack to facilitate the killing without risk to himself. In this problem, the charge of homicide is correct because it is not enough that Mo, Curly, and Larry were shot in a defenseless position. There must also be showing that Buboy specifically adopted his methods to ensure that all three of his victims would die with no risk to himself. For these reasons, Buboy cannot be held liable for murder. The worst mistake you can make in a conclusion is to simply repeat your opening statement. This would be a waste of your examiners or professors' precious time and attention. Marami ring hindi na lang nagsusulat ng conclusion dahil ayaw na lang nilang umulit lang ng first sentence. When you don't know what to write, focus on the fruits, effects, and results. Assuming that your answer is correct. Ano kaya ngayon? Salamat kapatid at sinamahan mo ako sa ilang minuto na tayo ay nagsagot ng isang bar exam problem. I will be doing my best to respond to all of your answers in the comments and give you timely feedback. Sana at kahit papano ay may natutunan ka. The means and methods I've discussed here are all contained in our digital workbook 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers. Here you will be tasked with answering about 105 bar problems spread out in various bar subjects. All of the answers here are broken down, explained, and discussed in much greater detail than what we have done here. You will also learn about how examiners draft their problems, where questions come from, and how to predict with a reasonable degree of accuracy the problems that might come out in your midterm and final exams. In this workbook, I've also discussed the common tactics that professors use to confuse law students and baristas. At ano ang pwedeng pangontra sa mga tactics nila? Narito rin ang mga typical na mali ng mga law students sa kanilang mga sagot at kung paano natin ito gagamutin. Follow along the journey as we help you take your answers from miserable to elegante. Grab your copy of 8, 101 practice problems for lost law students and bar takers through the links in the description box below. If you would like to see more episodes on how to answer law school exams and bar problems, please let me know by typing yes in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and share this video for good law school karma, and I will see you next Friday.